We are now in the Middle East, my friend. Shawarma with a little falafel, some tahini and everything else. Okay. That's good. All right, good morning, everybody. This is going to be a slightly different Rubin Report than usual. I am 6 hours in the future right now, so it is not 11 a.m. Eastern here in Tel Aviv right now. It's about, I think it's about noon or so. And yes, I am in Tel Aviv, Israel. This is the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. You know, the river to the sea people, they never know what river they're talking about. It's the Jordan River. And the Mediterranean Sea, that's this right here. I'm on the beach. It's an absolutely beautiful day. We did a couple days in Hungary, which we're going to release all sorts of videos of, but we thought for today that I would kind of just walk around. This is the boardwalk. Joey, maybe you want to give just like a bit of a longer shot there. This is the boardwalk, which basically goes all the way down to Jaffa, which is all the way down there. And if you were to really keep going south, this is the exact same beach, the exact same coast that Gaza is on. So when you see all those videos, it's like, this is what they could have had, and they kind of did have before they just decided to go on their genocidal mission. It's really been absolutely wonderful here. But, you know, before I start walking and everything else, let me quickly tell you about Hungary. We did CPAC. I met with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. We did a live Rubin Report with about 10 guests on the fly. It was awesome. All these videos will be going up. I'm sure the guys will throw some pictures in here so you can see some of that. And what's incredible about Hungary, before I get to Israel, is that it is a tiny country of less than 10 million people that is just trying to protect its borders and protect its culture and not be overtaken like we're watching happen to so many other countries. And then to come here, it's about a 3-hour flight. And then, you know, that's Central Europe. We come here to the Middle East with a tiny country of about 10 million people that is just trying to protect its borders and its way of life. And it's kind of crazy to think that somewhere down south right there, there's about 20 people that are somewhere under Gaza right now, and they have the dead bodies and all that. We went to Hostage Square. I spoke to a girl who is in captivity. It's beyond imagination. We're going to put the video up for you, but in captivity for 54 days. I spoke to one of the most elite soldiers who saved dozens of people that day, shot 7 times, doesn't have his bicep anymore. Like an unbelievable hero. But anyway, I thought we'll just walk. Let's just walk and talk. That's what we're going to do. Old school walk and talk. You know, when I started the Rubin Report way back when, this is how we started doing it, because we barely even had a studio and we would just do this kind of walk and talk thing. I'm going to slow down a little bit because we don't want Mr. Cameraman over here to collapse. Anyway, so here we are well, I'll talk a little bit also about some of the things going on back home, because I did wake up this morning and of course check Twitter, and there's obviously this horrific situation happening back home, which feels particularly bizarre to be here in Israel at the moment. You know, in Colorado, a illegal immigrant, sounds like from Egypt, got in the country in 2022, set several other people on fire while, of course, screaming free Palestine and all the usual nonsense. And so that was a bit of an odd day to be here while they're in the middle of a war. And as you can see, life goes on, right? Like life goes on here. And half of the people, it could be almost every male that you see on this beach that's over 18 has probably been to Gaza and served. You see some people that are limping or have other injuries or all sorts of stuff. And yet, they're in the middle of all that, and the place is vibrant and alive, and there's music, there's incredible food. We've been here for 2.5 days. I've probably had about 32 coffees. I did ask for a black coffee this morning. They're big on milk here, so somehow that's my black coffee this morning. But anyway, so that, you know, to wake up and see what happened in the United States of America, this is only, 2 weeks after that horrific shooting of the 2 people at the Israeli embassy. And when these people call for globalize the Intifada and river to the sea and all of these things, they're talking about killing all of these people. All of these people. And there are Muslims here. I was sitting next to 2 Muslim girls in traditional Muslim garb, actually speaking Hebrew. which was kind of interesting. Just over here a few minutes ago, there are Muslims here, there are Druze, there are Baha'i, there are atheists, there are Christians, and everyone's living peacefully here. This is actually the only place in the Middle East. The UAE is kind of doing it. It's at least on its way a little bit, that has anything like that. And that's the strange thing about the modern left, the progressives. The progressives love tolerance and diversity and all of these things. And actually, the place they hate the most is the only place in the Middle East, basically, that has any of those progressive ideals. If you've been seriously injured, your case could be worth millions, and you should know exactly what your rights are. That's why I want to tell you about Morgan & Morgan. They're America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys working in all 50 states. Unlike a lot of firms that settle quickly, Morgan & Morgan doesn't take lowball offers from private insurance companies. Just in the past few months, they won $12 million in Florida when the insurance company offered only $350,000. And in New York, they secured $6.8 million on a case where the offer was just $275K. And the best part, it's absolutely free unless you win. Insurance companies try to pay out as little as possible. Morgan & Morgan fights to get you more. It only takes a few minutes to see if you have a case, and you can do it right from your phone. It's that easy. I saw a clip this morning of Real Time with Bill Maher over the weekend. You didn't think I was not going to somehow talk about Bill, did you? And I know he had Jake Tapper on, and I watched their conversation. And Jake, I think, is really starting to see what time it is and wake up to some of what he's been part of and everything else. And, you know, I've said repeatedly on the show that I don't consider Jake a bad actor. I think he's probably a decent human. Yes, I've made fun of him a lot. We've done 5 weeks of Douchebag of the Week, and he's won 2 of those awards. But I see that he does seem to be earnestly waking up. And I always, because of my own journey and everything else, I always want to be sensitive to that sort of thing. So I do, in the spirit of peace and everything else, because Jake is going on every show, I would like to welcome Jake to come on my show. And of course, I will treat him as I treat every guest, which is with respect and decency. And if I've said anything untoward about him over the years, it was always in a kind of jokey manner as I was making a point, right? Like, that doesn't excuse any of the sort of cover up that he was involved in as it relates to Biden. But I would have no problem apologizing to his face for that. But I would love to build some bridges. I don't know if I'm just feeling that spirit in the Holy Land right now. But that's a bit of a side. So Jake, if you're watching, let's sit down, because we need alliances right now. We need good people that are that want to come together and put all this nonsense on the side. Like, otherwise, look where all of our countries are going. All of our countries. Like in America, are we just going to wake up every 2 weeks and, okay, they shot these 2 people and they burned these women and children, and oh, it happened. Okay, it's happening to the Jews now, but you guys know it never stops with the Jews, and then they'll do it again to somebody else and again and again and again, and we'll end up shredding all of the good things that our ancestors came here and built and all of that. So maybe it is because I'm in the Middle East. I'm feeling like a little bit let's do some peace. Let's do some peacemaking. They're really trying to do it here. So let me put that there. Just put a pin in that for now. So Jake, I'd love to do it. But, as far as the peacemaking and all that, and the endless focus on this place, every time I talk about Israel, I always bring up what a small country is. It's the size of New Jersey. New Jersey, its borders are only a couple miles wide left to right. It's absolutely tiny. And yet you can be at the beach and then ski in the mountains in the north, sometimes depending on what season it is. It's rather short. It's also, they have the Dead Sea, which we're going to tomorrow, which is literally the lowest place on earth where you can, float in the salt. You can't even swim. But it's so absolutely tiny. And everyone that I've talked to here, and I've tried to talk to people across the political aisle, I've actually tried not to talk about politics that much. Like, there's a certain amount of talking about the war. Like, what do you do? And almost everybody says the exact same thing, regardless of young or old or whatever it might be. Young or old, left or right, male or female, it doesn't matter. Everyone basically says the same thing, which is they just want the hostages back. That's it. They don't want to be at war. They want nothing to do with the Palestinians. Like, obviously, like, if you get the hostages back, like, there's still a problem in Gaza for sure. You could build the tallest wall ever, and maybe that's what they have to do. And They'll figure out some other things. But if anyone wants this war to end, all these people, the river to the sea people, the Free Palestine people, the globalize the Intifada people who are burning up people in America and taking over London and taking over France and everything else, like, if you want peace, which I don't really think they want, actually, but if you want Gazans not to be killed anymore, just release the hostages. It could literally end while I'm doing this video right now. And what you have to think about is, why do none of those people call for that? And the sad truth, and it's just the sad truth, is they don't want peace, right? They want a piece of this. And by a piece of this, I mean they want all of it, right? I mean, you go through the history of this place, and there was never a country. I mean, I know you guys watching this know this, but there never was a country of Palestine. There was the British Mandate of Palestine that was part of the British Empire. Before that, it was part of the Ottoman Empire. There are headlines. Oh, I can show you here. So these are some of the hostages. Well, several. There's the Bibis baby. So several of them no longer alive. But you'll see, Joey, maybe you can scan over here for a second. You'll see, I don't even know. In some places, you'll see these ribbons everywhere, and you'll see the pictures everywhere. And in some places, they'll put something on the picture that will say whether they're alive or dead, or where they released, or whatever it might be. These two, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, so someone can check this on me, but I think these two are brothers. And if I'm not mistaken, these are the two brothers who, when Hamas released the coffins of the Bibis family in that most sadistic, twisted thing that they did, what was that, 2 months ago? They took those brothers there, told them they were being released in a car, videotaped it, and then brought them back in. I mean, it's just unimaginable, some of the things they were doing. I talked to the hostages who lived in the most psychotic, broken legs, getting surgeries just so that they could stay alive, but no anesthesia because they would prefer the hostages be alive. Being told that, if they're about to be rescued, that they're just going to shoot them in the head. The glee, one of the girls was just talking about the glee that these people endlessly had because they had a Jew. And ironically, one of the girls I talked to also, she was Arab. Her mom's from Morocco. So she even knew Arabic. She knew how to talk to these people. And it's just pure evil. And to see now, nobody wants war here. Really, nobody. There were no Jews in Gaza beforehand. No one wanted anything to do with Gaza. But this whole idea that the war should end now, or they should stop, or Israel is being so mean, or all of these things, like, what would be more righteous than for a country to get its citizens back? What's the purpose of a nation state, right? And I would say that about any nation on earth. Like, it is your duty to protect your citizens. So for all these people that are like, Israel should just wrap it up and they should stop bombing and blah, 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 they're doing it for the most righteous reason you possibly could, which is to save what I think they now believe is 20 living hostages. And I think there's about 60 bodies they would like to retrieve as well. So they have to keep going. They know they have to keep going. They can't stop, and they can't listen to Macron or any of these other ridiculous European leaders. I mean, I saw videos last night of Paris just absolutely burning because of the jihadists on their street. And it's like, Macron, you want to point to Israel so that it's like giving catnip to the people in your country to keep them from coming for you. And it's the same thing in the UK. You have a huge jihadist problem, and you think, we'll just kind of throw the Jews under the bus. That'll buy me a little bit more time, but they're still going to come for the palace. Then having just been in Hungary, where they've closed the borders, right? They've closed the borders. They know who's in their country. And because of that, it is safe, and they are defending themselves. And one of the things that I found out in Hungary is that they are paying 1 million euros a day to the EU in fines because their borders are closed. So that means they pay 365 million euros a year just to protect their own sovereign borders. That's how evil all of this stuff is. We got into that with Viktor Orban. But every country has a right to defend its borders and defend its people. So this idea, so you want the war to end? I would like the war to end. Literally everybody here, it's the same thing over and over. But particularly in Hostage Square, which they have now. It's every single day. Hundreds and often thousands of people show up on Saturday nights after Shabbat. That's when we were there, and that's when it really starts getting busy, and it becomes, there's huge speeches and music and all of these things. And they have one of the cars there that was burned out and had an RPG hit it, and it's literally unimaginable stuff. The girl was telling me about the lice she had on her arm, and she would drink literally one capful, not a cup, a capful of water a day for several days while she was down there, and eat moldy pita while they would make her cook food for them. I mean, it's unbelievable. So anyway, so it seems to me that regardless, you don't care about the Jews, that's fine. But if you care about Western civilization, if you care about nations being able to protect their borders, which now we're all dealing with, it's very, I suppose, poignant that I went from one country in Europe that's kind of doing it right and seeing the success in that, and then to this place that is fighting for its life every day. It seems like Europe, it seems to me, is just sleepwalking into a slow death, right? They're not doing any of the right things. They don't know how to protect themselves. It's very sad. I wish they would. And most native Europeans wish they would. There's nothing wrong with British culture. There's actually a lot of great things about British culture. There's nothing wrong with French culture, but they seem unable to defend themselves. And then at the same time, as I said a moment ago, then they feel the need to pile on this place where not too far from here, because it's so small, a guy named Jesus was born. And this place where the Jews, every single Jew, if you're the most secular, non-religious, non-believer, whatever, what do? You celebrate Hanukkah during Christmas time, right? And what's the story of Hanukkah? It's the Jews defending the Judean hills from the Greek invaders. And every Jew celebrates that. And then these awful, I would say, jihad adjacent Congress people that we have, like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and AOC, they will wish Jews a happy Hanukkah. And then they also don't want Jews to live in the Judean hills. It's absolutely absurd. I should also note that 20% of Israel is Arab. They are Israeli Arabs. They have complete equal rights. They are allowed to vote. There is no apartheid or anything like that. There are disputed territories in Judea and Samaria because when the British Empire ended, it offered a partition plan. It said, we'll split the land between the Jews and the Arabs. There were no people called Palestinians at that time. When people talked about the Palestinians, they meant anyone that lived here. So the Arab countries, you can see New York Times headlines from the 30s, the Arab countries used to boycott Palestine because that's where the Jews lived. The coin of Palestine from the 30s has Hebrew on it. And it says, Am Yisrael Chai, the land of Israel, or Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. So people are completely confused about the history, of course. They're completely confused about the reality here. And I think that's why we're here, to clean up some of that. But it's not, in some sense, what I've really started realizing is it's not because I'm here defending this place. It's very honorable and should be defended, and they have every right to defend themselves, as I said. But in some sense, I really see now more clearly than I've ever seen the connection between what is going on here and now what has started to happen in all of the Western countries. This is just, for lack of a better term, this is ground zero. It's the tip of the spear of what is happening with worldwide jihad, the alliance between Marxism and progressivism and jihad. Like, it's all of these things that we're all feeling. So these guys, when I woke up this morning and I saw the story out of Colorado, and it's like, you just start becoming numb to it. So, okay, as I said earlier, every 2 weeks, these type of things will happen. Well, these guys here, we're walking up on Jaffa in a little bit. I was in Jaffa probably about 10 years ago when they just had stabbings every day. They were just random people stabbing people. That's happening in London now, but they survived that. They survived waves of suicide bombings, people that just blew themselves up on buses and in discos and in coffee shops over and over, and they survived all that. And then we see more of that in Europe and in the United States. And so these things are just deeply connected. If this place goes down, like, you don't have to care about the Jews. You really don't. But everyone that wants to live freely should care about freedom, and you should care about liberty. And if this place goes down, this is the little Satan, as they say. America's the big Satan. But if this place goes down, you think all of the bad forces that we're talking about are just going to be like, all right, guys, let's go home. Wrap it up. We got rid of those pesky Jews in the Middle East. No, then it's game on for everybody. It's so obvious. And I think it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee, which is kind of scary, I suppose, and depressing.
You guys know I'm all about logic and reason, and here's some simple logic. If your feet are killing you at the end of the day, you need new shoes. That's why I love G-Defy shoes by Gravity Defier. They're built on real science, not trends. Their patented Verso Shock technology absorbs harmful shock, returns energy, and is designed to align your body and makes walking, running, and standing feel effortless. Whether you're out and about or just on your feet all day, G-Defy makes every step better. Right now, you guys can get 30% off orders over $120. Just text Rubin30 to 91888 or visit gdefy.com and use code Rubin30 at checkout. Use logic, choose comfort, G-Defy.
The thing that I said a moment ago about the Europeans just kind of sleepwalking or just dying a slow death, watching the slow death of their countries. Douglas Murray wrote The Strange Death of Europe. He wrote that 10 years ago, probably. It's like they're just going along with that. And these guys, they are out there fighting every second. So I guess to wrap this up, I would say, how about this? If you disagree with everything I said here and you're watching this and this guy freaking Rubin and Israel and blah, all the stuff, right? How about this? You want the war to end? How about instead of chanting river to the sea, because this place is never going to be erased. It's never going to be erased. It's eternal. It's been here. It will always be here. How about instead of chanting that, you just take all of that energy and all of those signs, and instead of locking Jewish students from entering campus at Columbia and Harvard and all of the evil that we've now seen proliferated everywhere, how about you just start chanting, release the hostages? And if you get the hostages released, it all ends. So if you love the Palestinians, which of course these people don't love the Palestinians, the Gazans, they don't love them. Nobody, not one person, Egypt has a border with Gaza. They could have opened it up on October 8th and saved everybody, but they don't love them. They don't love them, and we all know that. No Arab country wants these people. Why is that? Why is that? So there's a lot of hope here. There's a lot of hope here, and I hope people will start seeing that and see that something really beautiful. This is what the Gazans on October 6th, their beach looked pretty close to this. Their buildings looked kind of close to this, and they chose to throw it all away. And Israel is now fighting the most psychotic. They're fighting a war that no other Western nation has ever had to fight in their life, while being told that they shouldn't fight the war, that they should leave their own people, that they should feed the people who are trying to kill them. No other country would be asked any of these things. They're asked these things, and they're just going to keep fighting. Like that's more clear than anything else. If I've learned anything while I'm here, these people will not stop fighting for their existence. And in some sense, they're fighting for all of our existences. And that's just the truth. So we have a show tonight, and I think it's sold out already, but we've got a show tonight. If there are a couple tickets, maybe you can still snag them. DaveRubin.com/events. That's in Tel Aviv tonight. We'll be in Jerusalem in 2 days from now. I don't even know what day it is. Today's Monday. On Wednesday, the 4th, we'll be in Jerusalem, and we're going to go to the Wall again in the Church of Holy Sepulchre. And as I said, we're going to go down to the Dead Sea and do a bunch more. We're working on a couple interviews that we're going to put together. And there you go. Shalom.
Taco, 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 taco. Taco strike back.
You know, I'm out of the country and I have no idea what that was about, but the point is, stay away from Ana Navarro's taco. Hello, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report, and we are on location here in Tel Aviv, Israel. It's June 3rd, if you didn't know what day it was. We're a little bit in the future right now, 6 hours to be precise, but you are watching this right now at 11 a.m. Eastern. As always, we are live streaming on Rumble, on YouTube, and on Locals, and it's been really just an incredible trip so far. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about what we did over
were in Hungary and CPAC and all that stuff and meeting with the prime minister there. And now we've been in Israel for a couple of days. We had our big show in Tel Aviv last night, which was jam-packed, sold out. It was just a great night. Thanks to everybody who came out. And tomorrow night, we will be in Jerusalem, and I think there are a couple tickets left, daverubin.com/events. And we're going to be bouncing around. Today, we're going to the Sea of Galilee. Tomorrow, I think we're doing the show live from Masada, if I'm not mistaken. We're just doing a whole bunch of stuff, and we're talking to people. I'm talking to survivors of October 7th and people that were held hostage, and we're talking to soldiers, and we're just wandering around and just chatting and seeing people and kind of hearing the story and all of that, which is kind of connected to the backdrop of where we're going to start today, because people think, I think, that the things that happen in the Middle East maybe just stay in the Middle East, but clearly that is not the case. There's this horrific story out of Boulder, Colorado. But before I get to all of that, I want to make a quick correction. It's a little bit technical, but about a week ago on the show, we did a story about this young woman, Ava Moore, who was killed on a jet ski, and it was an illegal who was responsible for her death. And on the second video that we showed you there, where someone was being arrested, we said that was someone that she was with. It actually was not someone that she was with. It was just another illegal who happened to be there. I know that's probably a minor technicality, but you guys know me. I am not above making a correction when a correction is due. So yeah, we're going to start with this Colorado situation, which, when they say globalize the Intifada, well, I think we're seeing it globalize right now, and maybe I'm just feeling this more so from being here in Israel, but what starts with the Jews probably doesn't end with the Jews. I think there's a lot of history with that, so everyone should care about this just purely from an American perspective, right? If we are now going to have this sort of unrelenting jihad on our streets. This is only a couple weeks after, two Israeli diplomats who happen to be Christian actually were shot in D.C. Let's not forget that Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who happens to be Jewish, his house was firebombed on a holiday. Like, there's just a lot of bad stuff in the ether. So let's dive right in and get you caught up. This is from the Daily Wire. Sources within the Department of Homeland Security say that the suspect in the attack, Mohamed Sabry Soliman, 45, is an Egyptian national who entered the United States during the Biden administration and overstayed his visa, Fox News reported late on Sunday. Soliman is believed to have entered the country in August 22 on a visa that expired in February of the following year. The Egyptian national filed an unknown claim with the DHS's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. The Biden administration granted Soliman work authorization, which expired in March. The FBI said that 6 people were taken to the hospital with injuries, and that a witness said the suspect in the attack used a makeshift flamethrower and threw incendiary devices in the crowd. Okay, so this man with his makeshift flamethrower and his Molotov cocktails, it sounds like they found about a dozen more, burned a whole bunch of people. They happened to be Jewish. These were people who were weekly getting together and, holding basically a meeting for the hostages. And we let this jihadist in. I guess I say we in the sort of like this because it was Joe Biden, and really it was whoever was in charge of Joe Biden that did it. And whether this guy had a visa first and overstayed it, that's still illegal, or he was just one of the people, had he been some of the people that just wandered in. I mean, think how many more of these people are in our country right now. We have no idea. What do I always say about the numbers on this thing? If you let in 15 million people and 10% of them are bad, you're at 1.5 million. And if you take 10% of them that are really, really bad, you're at 150,000. And if you take 10% of them that are really psychotic, you got 15,000. And we can keep doing this, right? We can keep going down that road. So we have no idea who's in this country, and we are clearly going to pay the price for it. I wish I could say it in a less alarming way, but we are obviously going to pay the price. Here's info from Fox News talking about a little bit more of detail on what the murderer, psychotic, jihadist, evil psychopath was planning on doing.
The details that we are now learning, as Alicia just reported out of Boulder, they are chilling. They found 14 unlit Molotov cocktails at the scene of his arrest. On his victims, he said he targeted them. He knew they were there. In fact, when he confessed to the attack, when he was being taken into custody, he told the police he would do it again.
he's granted a work authorization by the Biden administration. What does that say, Caroline, about their vetting process?
They had no vetting process. This is something President Trump has been calling attention to for years. He talked about this on the campaign trail, how the Biden administration was allowing illegal aliens from all over the world to come into our country illegally, unvetted, untested. We had a wide open border policy, and the president was right to point that out in his statement this morning. All of that has come to an end, though, John, and this administration is focused on deporting as many of these illegal aliens who entered our country as possible. Again, this is not going to be a place of asylum for those who seek to do harm in the United States of America. We have a legal immigration process for a reason that this administration is focused on strengthening. But in the meantime, we are conducting widespread deportation operations across this country to remove terrorists like this individual from our communities every single day.
In Caroline Levitt, you know, that top 10 list I've got of the Trump people, like she's definitely top 3 right now. And can you imagine how fundamentally different everything would be right now if we had a Kamala Harris administration? Not only did they let all of these people in, but we wouldn't be doing anything about the ones that are here. And now we are going to do it. So it's compounded in a million different ways. We have all of the ones that just came through illegally that we have no idea where they are. We have all people like this who came in, you know, skirted what they were supposed to do, overstayed visas, et cetera, and clearly there was no vetting. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb here that they're going to find some posts from this guy from years ago that are pretty bad, and they let this guy into the United States. And putting ideology and putting the war here and putting everything else aside, in the United States of America, you cannot just murder people and get away with it. I know that seemingly is what the Democrats would want, but no more of this. And thank God Donald Trump is president of the United States. But again, the question, it's all to the backdrop of how many more of these people are there in this country. And it's not just this country, right? It's all over Western Europe. Interestingly, it's not in some of the Central European countries like Hungary that closed the border, and everyone says that Viktor Orban, who I met with, and all he talked about was his love of his country and wanting to keep it safe and wanting to make sure that it had borders and everything else, which Hungary pays 365 million euros a year so that they're allowed to close their border. That's the deal they had to cut with the EU. Think how profoundly criminal that is. But this is happening everywhere, and until we figure out where these people are, what their intentions are, and everything else, it's just going to keep happening. And actually, when I mentioned a bunch of the terrorist attacks in America in the last couple of months, I skipped over New Year's Day in New Orleans when a jihadi killed, I think, 12 people. So it's here, guys. Here's Florida Representative Randy Fine.
Evil by its name, because that's what we're dealing with here. We are dealing with a fight of good versus evil. And what I tell people all the time is the only reason the Muslim terrorists are going after Israel is because it's little and it's close. They want America next. And so we need to take a hard look at the kinds of people we're letting into this country, whether it's for education or other things, and we need to look at what we're allowing to be funded in our country.
Yeah, it's not that complex, guys. Figure out who's in your country, vet properly, kick people out who are sympathetic to this. All of these freaks who are on the streets masked like Hamas people that literally have Hezbollah headbands and the keffiyeh and all of these things, they are here. Yes, do they hate the Jews? Okay, fine, they want to take out the Jews, and do they want to take out Israel and all of those things, and the Jews will still be here after them, and Israel will be here after them, and everything else. But as a purely American position, and it's not just American, whatever Western country you're in, if you're a British citizen, you should not want these people here anymore. If you're a French citizen, you should not want them anymore, and we should not tolerate it. Tolerance cannot be at the top of your hierarchy of importance, right? I'm so tolerant that I will let in the very same people who will behead me and who will kill my neighbor and rape my cousin. Like, no. Tolerance can go down to third, maybe fourth. It'd probably be about sixth in your hierarchy, but it cannot be number one. And now I want to show you, this is 3 clips we're going to show you of how the mainstream media is covering this. And surprise, surprise, they imply that this Egyptian man who is trying to kill all the Zionists, they imply that he is white. Then, of course, they make it about guns, and they make it about the right. 3 clips here for you.
There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male.
Across the country, we are still in the midst of a gun violence epidemic. So we need to be acting with due concern for human life. I mean, this is why, of course, we have been fighting for a universal violent criminal background check. We are for a ban on military-style assault weapons in the country. Our lax gun laws are a danger to everybody in America, and that's something that we can act with some legislative determination to turn around. But people have got to lead their lives, and people need to act with courage, but it is the responsibility of government to try to keep everybody safe from random arbitrary violence and bigotry and hate-motivated crimes.
In these violent attacks in recent months, Governor Shapiro's house, the attack and murders outside the Jewish Museum. It is also a problem on the right. In addition to the Tree of Life synagogue killing in Pittsburgh, which is obviously homicidal, there's been reporting recently that the Pentagon press secretary, Kingsley Wilson, has a history of social media posts pushing anti-Semitic tropes. And again, the problem right now that we're seeing in terms of violence is on the left. And I want to make it clear, I'm not doing whataboutism. But it is really difficult to be a Jew in America and not see this as a bipartisan affliction.
Oh, there's a lot there. We'll get to Jake in just a second because obviously I talked about him in yesterday's show. So first off, that the media could say that this is a white male. Now, you've seen the pictures of him. We'll show a picture of the guy right now. I mean, does his skin color kind of look white? Yeah, I suppose. But he was an Egyptian national who happens to be Muslim. He's he's Muslim, and he is sympathetic with jihad and all of those things. Should not been here. And the idea that he was white, right? Like they want to trick you into thinking this had something to do with white supremacy or something else. I understand that the people who watch MSNBC are already brain dead, but they're just putting more crapola on people who can't think for themselves. That's number one. Number two, then Jamie Raskin. I mean, what a pathetic answer. No, it was not random, arbitrary violence. The guy had been staking that place out for weeks. It was very specific. He's telling you who he wants to kill all the Zionists, right? Like it's completely the reverse of random and arbitrary. It was targeted and specific, you moron. And also, to make this about guns, the guy didn't even use guns. He had homemade Molotov cocktails, which anyone can make, and you can basically light anyone on fire. What are we going to do now? So you want to ban lighter fluid? You want to ban alcohol? Like you guys are just completely idiotic, and it's that shell game I always talk about. The things over here, so they make you look over here. And then Jake, look, I mean everything I said the other day or yesterday. Jake, I would like to sit down with you. I think your red pilling is getting there, but you can see the guilt that you've got still at the end there. You name 5 or 6 attacks that all came from the left. All of the stuff happening in our streets is all from the pro-jihad left that now basically encompasses the Democrat Party. And then you go back to the Tree of Life shooting, which apparently did come from someone who was right-leaning, let's say, but it was years ago. You did find one. I mean, come on, man. Don't whataboutism. Like, is there some potential brewing problem on the right? Possibly. There might be. And we can talk about it when it's real. But all of this is coming from the left, the Democrats. That's your people. So you're telling me no whataboutism while you're doing whataboutism. It's kind of like writing a book about a cover-up around a president when you were involved in the cover-up. But I say all of that to say, let's talk about this, Jake. I really mean that. Let's clean it up with Scott Jennings, because there is someone on CNN that just gets it.
Well, I mean, this is horrific. And what more do we need to see, Jake, before we realize this Free Palestine movement is nothing more than a domestic terror organization right now? I mean, we had the killings in Washington a couple of weeks ago. We have this issue in Colorado. We've seen, the activities on college campuses now for months and months and months and months. The rise of anti-Semitism in America, the rise in the number of people who have come to America who hold anti-American views, anti-Western views, and anti-Semitic views and are now willing to act on it. It is absolutely outrageous. And I think as a society, we need to understand we are dealing with domestic terrorism. It's growing more violent by the day. And if we don't deal with it, these kinds of things are going to keep happening in cities all over the place. It's awful. And we need to come to grips with the fight that we're in right now in America, a fight for the future of our country and the future of Western civilization, in my opinion.
Yeah, Scott Jennings, as usual, just basic, simple truth, which makes him look like a wizard over at CNN. What did you think when they said globalize the Intifada? Did you think they didn't mean it? They meant we do suicide bombings here, we do stabbings. murder, rape, torture, kidnapping. We do it here. And they were saying globalize. That's the thing. We're going to globalize it. And now it's happening. And it's not just in America. It's happening all over the world. Paris is burning right now because of jihadis. The UK is done. It's just done and lost. That's just reality. And when they said river to the sea, what do you think they meant? Well, this is the Mediterranean Sea right behind me, and only a couple miles that way is the Jordan River. So when they want Palestine to be free, that means they want to wipe out all of this. They'd also have to kill about 2 million Israeli Arabs who live here totally peacefully, but I guess they would do that in the name of worldwide jihad. So we are going to have to get serious about these things. And the interesting thing is when he says, that this Palestinian movement, which is they're not even a people really, but putting that aside, that this movement is, that it's a terrorist movement. It's like, what do the people, why is it that wherever they are, they're burning their own country's flags, right? So they do it in Paris, and they do it in London, and they do it in Brussels, and they do it wherever they are. They're burning their own country's flags while they're showing you a flag of a country that never existed and will never exist. Why are they doing that? Because it has nothing to do with building a state of Palestine. It has to do with destroying the Western states that put tolerance at the top of that hierarchy. All right, we're going to shift altogether, talk a little bit about Elon and Doge in just a second, but first, home title lock.
Homeowners, listen up. Your home title and equity are at risk. In today's AI-driven, cyber-hacked world, criminals are stealing home titles by forging your signature, using fake notary stamps, and filing a simple document with the county. Just like that, your home is no longer in your name. They can drain your equity or even sell your property, and you won't know it until you get a foreclosure or collection notice. When's the last time you checked your home title? If the answer is never, you need Home Title Lock. I've partnered with them so you can see if you're already a victim absolutely free. Use promo code Rubin at HometitleLock.com and get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your home and your equity today. Go to HometitleLock.com and use code Rubin.
All right, so I'm a couple days behind this one, but obviously I wanted to hit it because I think it's been really the biggest sort of domestic story since Trump took over, which is all of the Doge stuff and Elon is stepping away. He's going to start focusing on robots and getting life to go interstellar, interplanetary, and all that stuff. So he is finally stepping away from his temporary position at Doge, although stepping away, though he'll kind of be stepping back in every now and again, and he set up a structure, I think, that we are going to be very appreciative for a long time coming.
Well, let me say perhaps a few words that this is not the end of Doge, but really the beginning. My time as a special government employee necessarily had to end. It was a limited time thing. It's 134 days, I believe, which ends in a few days. So that it comes with a time limit. But the Doge team will only grow stronger over time. The Doge influence will only grow stronger. I'd liken it to sort of Buddhism. It's like a way of life. So it is permeating throughout the government, and I'm confident that over time we'll see $1 trillion of savings and a reduction in $1 trillion of waste and fraud reduction. The calculations of the Doge team thus far, in terms of an FY25 to FY26 delta, are over 160 billion, and that's climbing. We expect that number will probably go over 200 billion soon. So I think the Doge team is doing an incredible job. They're going to continue doing an incredible job, and I'll continue to be visiting here and be a friend and advisor to the president.
All right, so look, we really owe that guy the amount of stuff that he uncovered, the amount of waste and fraud. And then the idea that we're going to get to 200 billion in waste and fraud soon, right? But his goal is $1 trillion. He's still got the people in there. And the thing is, once you start cleaning some of this stuff up, once people need receipts, once people need to be able to look at books and be like, where is that money going? And are these people dead that we're sending checks to and all those things? Then the government will start tightening itself, right? There's been nobody in charge of anything, right? You could directly connect that to the border. Who is in charge? In some sense, it doesn't even matter. The buck never stopped with anyone. Anyone could come into this country. Anyone that worked for the government could spend on all of these crazy things. So the guy
did something absolutely amazing, and he did it for free, and he did it at great cost, right? With all of the Teslas that had swastikas etched into them and Tesla charging stations that were attacked, and that this man went from 4 years ago being the hero of the left that was on the cover of every magazine as, you know, the next Renaissance man who's going to take life interplanetary, and now he's thought of as some, you know, right-wing lunatic. Like, again, it's just, they do every freaking thing backwards. And speaking of backwards, this from the New York Times: Elon Musk's legacy is disease, starvation, and death. Can you imagine that being your takeaway? I mean, I know the New York Times is not worth the paper it is printed on. It should be at the bottom of a birdcage, and that's it. It's all the propaganda that's fit to print. It is nothing more than that. Anyone you know that subscribes to the New York Times should have their head examined. It is genuinely that bad. But what is that article referencing? Well, take a look.
And when you go back to the Elon Musk story, it's the same story. He didn't just leave. He's not just slipping out of Washington. He was chased out of Washington by democracy, by people saying no, by people protesting so much around his cars and dealerships that he lost billions and billions of dollars.
And so there's folks at Boston University who count how many people have died because of what Doge did at USAID. And USAID was a very ill-managed organization. That's true. But according to the Boston University folks, so far 55,000 adults have died of AIDS in the 4 months since Trump was elected. 6,000 children are dead because of what Doge did. That's just PEPFAR, the HIV. You add them all up, that's 300,000 dead, and we're 4 months in.
So what are Democrats going to do about the data? Are you all going to follow up on this? What's your take on Elon Musk being done? Because I just think he's finished. He's just finished what he was doing. Actually, he's finished. He's not done because they've still got the data.
Yeah, I heard he's on some image repair tour. I think the best way for him to repair his image is to reverse all the damage he did to our government, to the American people. And yeah, those servers are a big issue. We want to continue to investigate that. And certainly, I think some crimes may have been committed over the past 3 or 4 months, and they are going to come to light. One way or another, we're going to come to light, even if it takes us getting into power again. But we will subpoena people and find out.
Who said put that man on TV? That guy's got it. Let's get him on TV with that nasally, pathetic affect. All of these people are completely ridiculous. We'll fact check the thing about all of the people dying. But it's all insane. Why do you think Elon Musk did this? How do you think he got red pilled? It's because you guys lied about everything over the last couple of years, all of the COVID stuff, everything related to Biden, and you red pilled him and millions of other people. He did not need this. The idea that Batman villain from MSNBC with the white hair, he looks like he should be in Arkham Asylum level 3 in like the most secure padded cell that they've got. It's like that guy, he's happy that Elon got chased out of DC and that people were protesting at the Tesla charging stations and everything else. You're like, you're happy about that? You people are awful. But let's fact check the 300,000 deaths. This is according to Grok. The claim that 300,000 deaths have occurred due to USAID funding cuts influenced by Elon Musk is not supported by conclusive evidence and appears to be an estimate based on projections rather than verified data. Various sources, including a New York Times article and a Boston University report, cite estimates from researchers like Brooke Nichols at the Center of Global Development, suggesting that cuts to USAID programs could lead to significant mortality. However, these figures are largely projections based on modeling, not confirmed death tolls. Critics argue that estimates may not account for variables like other organizations stepping in to mitigate impacts or the exact status of funding flows. Given the lack of concrete data confirming 300,000 deaths and the reliance of the predictive models, the claim should be treated as speculative, unverified. So you get that. So congratulations, some guy did a model somewhere in Boston, and they're like, that proves 300,000 people died. And you know what? If you people care so much, if you care so much about taking American taxpayer dollars to stop people elsewhere from getting HIV, and you might argue that that's a worthwhile and just fine cause. How about David Brooks? You're pretty rich, I would imagine. How about you throw in some money for that? But I'm guessing you've thrown in zero because you people don't really care. You just want to use the government to do your pet projects. And when you have the government, it's great. And when you lose the government, it is bad. But there is no evidence that anyone died. And also, again, you would allow for, if the government's if these things are so great to do, if they're so great to do and the government doesn't have the money for them anymore, let's get private people involved, right? Don't say it, show it to us, you great, wonderful people. You guys really care, except when it comes to busting out the cash. Then you care a little bit less. Guys, let's talk about Shopify for a minute, and then we will get over to the economy, the tariffs, and much more. Started the show, I had to figure everything out myself. Gear, graphics, promotion, you name it. It felt like I was running 5 businesses all at once. That's why I wish I had Shopify from day one. Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform trusted by millions of businesses worldwide, powering 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. It makes building a beautiful online store easy with ready-made templates that match your brand. Its AI tools help you write product descriptions, enhance photos, and streamline your everyday tasks. You can launch email and social campaigns like you've got a full-blown marketing team. And when it comes to inventory, shipping, and returns, Shopify has you covered. Turn your dream into a business with Shopify on your side. Sign up for a $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Rubin. That's shopify.com/Rubin. Shopify.com/Rubin. All right, so the tariff war continues. Same thing I've said from the beginning. We have to see where all these deals land, but the big fish is obviously China, and that does seem to be a little tense at the moment between China and the United States. This from Donald Trump on Truth Social. 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the United States marketplace, which is by far #1 in the world. We went, in effect, cold turkey with China, and it was devastating for them. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and I didn't like it, for them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them on what I thought was going to be a very bad situation, and I didn't want to see that happen. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. That is the good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with the US. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. Okay, so it does seem like it's getting a little tense with China. At the end of the day, guys, look, whether you like tariffs, don't like tariffs, we all know we had bad trade deals, and we all know that Americans, what do we know about Americans? God bless us. We like to buy a lot of crap. Think of all of the crap that you have showing up at your house every day from Amazon. It's a lot of crap, and a lot of it's made in China, right? So they need us. Well, I don't know that it's more, because they make a lot of stuff that we need too, but that we actually need. I'm not just talking about the crap that shows up at your door. But the point is, they need access to our markets, even if it's all just crap we're buying. And we do buy some vital things from them too. And even during COVID, how insane the virus comes from the Wuhan lab, and we're buying all our PPE from them, right? Like it's all nuts. But at the end of the day, if you've got a lot of stuff to sell, you need someone to sell it to, and that's us. So we do have some leverage here. Scott Besson, who's obviously helping Trump with, working out all of these deals, and he's the one that said we'll have about 60 of them probably in the next couple weeks. Here he is on CBS talking to Margaret Brennan about China tariffs and inflation.
Trade talks, you said, with Beijing are stalled, and President Trump just accused China of violating an agreement and now says no more Mr. Nice Guy. Are you intentionally escalating this standoff with Beijing?
Well, I don't think it's intentional. I think that what Secretary Hegseth did was remind everyone that during COVID, China was an unreliable partner. And what we are trying to do is to de-risk. We do not want to decouple, Margaret, but we do need to de-risk, as we saw during COVID, whether it was with semiconductors, medicines, the other products. We are in the process of de-risking.
Making the United States less reliant on China, but at the same time.
And the whole world. The whole world, because what China is doing is they are holding back products that are essential for the industrial supply chains of India, of Europe, and that is not what a reliable partner does.
The reality is there will either be less inventory or things at higher prices, or both.
When we were here in March, you said there was going to be big inflation. There hasn't been any inflation. Actually, the inflation numbers are the best in 4 years. So why don't we stop trying to say this could happen and wait and see what does happen?
All right. So first off, Bessem, that's a great line. We want to de-risk, not decouple. We're not saying we're not going to do any business with China. Again, they make a lot of stuff whether we like it or not. We buy a lot of stuff whether we like it or not. Simple as that. So we don't want to decouple from them, but you want to de-risk. You want to make sure that you're not so reliant on them. So when the next pandemic hits, even if they're the ones that released it from the lab, that we don't have to get our PPE from them. We don't want to be so reliant on them for superconductors and all of these things as we enter this AI arms race. This is all obvious. And then, of course, her follow-up question, but prices are going to go up with things. That might be true at times. It actually might be. But that's the pain point that Donald Trump said could be coming if we're ever to fix anything, right? Everyone else was taking us on a slow path, right? It was just sort of the slow descent to hell economically. Virtually every country in the world was screwing us over. Now we're in this shift phase where we're getting screwed over a little bit less, but during that de-screwing, we've got decoupling, we've also got de-screwing. During that de-screwing, it's going to be a little bit bumpy. And then, of course, he's right that inflation actually has been completely fine. The market is more than back from those few days that everybody said, that all hell was going to break loose and everything else. So it's all just nonsense. And to prove that it's just nonsense, here's CNBC saying that actually things are pretty freaking good.
Personal income is up 0.8%. That is almost triple the expectations, and it underscores we could talk about a lot of issues, but when you look at income for the first 4 months of the year, they're powerful numbers, Joe. Up 0.6 in January, up 0.7 in February, up 0.5% last month, up 0.8 this month. This is a great 4-month start to any year. Now, with the income shooting up, and by the way, 0.8 is the strongest income month-over-month jump since May of 21, when it was 1.9.
Guys, this is basic stuff. Income going up, that's good. Inflation going down, that's good. Market, which was here, then went down for a couple of days as the trade deals were shaking out. 3 days, and then we had 9 straight days of growth, and now the market's above where it was. So all of these things, they were the things that we were told were going to happen. They happened, and actually things are pretty good. This next story involves a little troll-like creature who I despise, who I'm told is now only a few miles south of me. What a bizarre, bizarre world this is. We'll have that. Yes, I'm talking about Greta Thunberg, but first, CB Distillery. If you're tossing and turning at night or feeling off during the day, it's time to try CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are using it, and over 90% report better sleep. But it's not just sleep. CB Distillery is clean, targeted formulas for stress, focus, post-workout pain, and even pets. No fillers, just high-quality CBD trusted by over 2 million customers and backed by 100% money-back guarantee. If you're still searching for relief, join the millions making the switch. Right now, get 25% off your entire purchase with CB Distillery with promo code Rubin. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Rubin. Availability may vary by state. So Greta Thunberg, the retired climate activist, she realized that the climate grift was over, so she wanted to get on the jihad bandwagon. She is en route and possibly in Gaza right now. It's a little unclear to me, but listen to this from AP News. Climate campaigner Greta Thunberg and 11 other activists set sail on Sunday afternoon for Gaza on a ship aimed at breaking Israel's siege of the devastated territory, organizers said. The sailing boat Madeleine, operated by activist group Freedom Flotilla Coalition, departed from the Sicilian port of Catania in southern Italy. It will try to reach the shores of the Gaza Strip in an effort to bring in some aid and raise international awareness over the ongoing humanitarian crisis, the activist said at a press conference on Sunday ahead of her departure. And before I even comment on that vile little troll creature, let's throw to some video of her.
Hello, I am currently standing on the Madeleine, the ship that on Sunday, June 1st, will attempt to again sail towards Gaza and to try to break the siege and open up a humanitarian corridor by delivering aid like food and medical supplies. The last time we attempted this, about a month ago, the boat Conscience that we were about to board, just a couple of hours before we were planning to board and set sail, it got bombed twice, and all evidence suggests that it was Israel who did it.
Oh my god.
So now we are here in Catania, outside of Sicily, to try to continue our mission to try again.
All right, listen, that little climate cunt, it is unclear to me where she is right now. She might be, I don't know if they're going to let the ship land. She's also not interested in Egypt's blockade of Gaza, right? It's only about those pesky Jews, of course. Why didn't she just, I got an idea for you, and it would have been easier than the flotilla. You could have just taken a plane over to Cairo and then taken a car ride through Sinai and then walked up to the giant border with Egypt and asked them to open the doors. Why didn't you do that, Greta? Why didn't you do that? So it is, as we tape right now, it's a little unclear where she is. Did she get all the way here? Would they allow her to enter Gaza? And what would Hamas do with someone like her? I mean, I know they like useful idiots, but like, you know, and also this idea, this climate, everything about the climate change conversation, everything was always complete nonsense. And she was just the avatar for that. But if she cared about the environment at all, the country in the Middle East that she would love the most would be this place, which has done more for green energy and clean energy and literally making the desert bloom. This place 100 years ago, when it was the British mandate of Palestine, and even before that into the Ottoman Empire, it was basically a swamp that was a flea-ridden swamp. It was the Jews who dredged the swamp. It was the Jews who then went to the Negev and made the desert bloom. That's the phrase, right? Because they created drip irrigation, because obviously it's hot in the desert, and when people were watering, all the water was evaporating, so they created drip irrigation here. They've done more for green energy and desalinization. They used to have a water deficit here, now they export water. So if you cared about any of the things that you purport to care about, and I know you don't, then you might want to revisit some of your prior assumptions. But we can't end the show with the climate cunt. Can't do it. I can't do it. We've got to end with something that actually, with a young person who I would say is the reverse of Greta Thunberg, someone that we actually all should know and pay more attention to. And it's a bit of sad news, unfortunately. But do you remember that young man, DJ Daniel, who Donald Trump gave a shout out to during the State of the Union speech, who wanted to be a police officer? Now he's an honorary police officer, and we played some videos. This guy just got such a wonderful way of speaking and a good heart and loves his country and all this stuff. It does turn out that he now has some new tumors. He's just such a great kid. Let me read this tweet from the White House. We're lifting up Agent DJ Daniel in prayer after his dad, Theodosis, shared that DJ is now facing 3 new tumors. DJ is one of the strongest, bravest young men and has now been sworn into 1,351 law enforcement agencies across the country. Agent Daniel, you're a true legend. And I thought we would end today's show, instead of Greta and the awful people and any more of the college kids that have been brainwashed and all of that stuff, how about DJ Daniel with some words of wisdom?
I was diagnosed with brain and spinal cancer. It's called anaplastic empedoma WHO grade 3. It's relapse and recurrent and metastatic size.
So have you had any surgeries for this?
13. I was not expecting that, because the craziest thing is when we got there, everybody knew, they just didn't want to tell me. My face was exactly like this. He went like this. I went like this. I said, and anywho, it looks like this. Based off my opinion, if somebody makes me have a bad day, I'm still gonna have a good day. I don't care. There's a lot of kids in that hospital that have bald heads, and they didn't want that to happen. I'm gonna be honest, none of us asked to be here. But I remember from last year, I asked my dad if I could cut my hair. He said, why? I said, there's certain kids in that hospital that ain't got no hair, so I cut my hair off just to make them happy. I don't care if I have hair. That was pretty good. I was not expecting them to be there. It's like I'm just walking around and I just ran into them. That's just like you running into a brick wall. And a message for kids that got cancer: have faith, believe in God, listen to your parents.
Well, that is a good young man right there. And you know what, DJ? I'm in a place right now that, as I understand it, has a pretty good connection to God. And we're going to Jerusalem tonight, and I will be at the Western Wall tomorrow. And I will say a prayer for you. And I have no doubt that many people watching this will say a prayer for you. And we wish you the best. And in this special place that we're in right now, let's not forget we can all be special people like that guy. All right, no post-game show, obviously. Thanks for watching, everybody. More from the Holy Land soon. Thanks.
But I am telling you right now, that mother back there is not real.
What do you mean I'm not real? Of course I'm real. I am the President of the United States.
Toasty!
Out of all of the countries in all of Europe, meaning Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, etc., Hungary to me is the strongest. I think some of the other Eastern and Central European nations are doing just fine. Hungary really is sort of, I would say, it's the main bulwark against the craziness, and Western Europe is largely screwed up, and I don't sense, after spending a lot of time in London and wandering around those streets, like, you try to find me a native Brit who is bullish on his country, and you got to find somebody who's like 6 pints in and willing to tell you that, because otherwise it's hard to find.
Does it shock you that Hungary is the example for other European countries?
Yeah, that's a good question, because does it shock me that Hungary is the example? What's obvious to me is that they learned the lessons. That's the thing. These people are serious about protecting their nation this time because their ancestors paid the price for it.
I'll make it work, and then so that's 5 p.m. London time, but 6 p.m. Budapest time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Already?
It's a little early. I'm Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report, and we're going to be talking about Hungary, a very small, misunderstood country that I've spent a lot of time in and really grown to love.
What are some of the main things that stood out about Hungary?
Hungary is small, first off. It really is a small country. I don't know if people think it's big or think it's medium or think it's small, but it's a country geographically that's pretty small in Central Europe. People think it's in Eastern Europe. Technically, it's Central Europe. And it's only got 9.7 million people, which is not a lot. We've got about 350 million in America, so only about 10 million people, but they have a heritage, they have a history, they have a culture, they've survived the communists and they've survived the Nazis, and so much of what's happening in Hungary in 2025 is a rebuilding or a rebirth of the survival of their history, and they're trying to figure out, how do we protect our borders, how do we protect our country, our values, without giving away too much to all of the European nations that seem to want to take a lot from Hungary. They want them to open their borders and take in refugees and create much of the mess that's across Europe right now. And Hungary, almost all the Hungarians that I talk to, and I'm sure I talk to plenty of people from all sorts of walks of life, they just want Hungary to remain Hungarian, and that seems like a pretty noble project to me.
What was it like being there? What was the weather like? What was the overall vibe and energy while being in Hungary?
This was my second time in Budapest, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. And what I love about it is that there's incredible history. They've survived wars. There's, places that were destroyed that are being rebuilt, but then you see the Parliament building that is absolutely stunning. You can't believe that they could even make architecture like that. And you walk across the Danube River and the bridge and, everything. I mean, what really struck me is that everything feels safe. All right, here we are in Budapest, also known as Budapest, as the locals say, and we're crossing the Danube River right now. There's the Parliament building, which is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. It's one of these things that you can't believe that people used to make things like that. And we're crossing the famous river Danube right here. Look at this. This splits the city. It's really rather remarkable. And I have to say, more than anything else, this is my second time here in Hungary, but more than anything else, I mean, it's a beautiful day out. The air is perfect and crisp, but it's clean, it's pleasant, it's buzzing. There's just a feeling of, I don't know, safety, and there's really no homeless people and drugs and vagrants and migrants and all the other ants and things like that. So it's really, really nice. We're going to head to CPAC tomorrow. We're doing an event with the Danube Institute. It's going to be a little bit of a European Rubin Report reunion. More in a bit. We were walking around at 2 a.m. after, going out to dinners and hanging out at bars and chatting with people. And, I didn't have to hide my phone in my pocket. We were in London just a few days before that, and people were saying, oh, you don't want to walk around with your phone just, out in your hand. You gotta hide it. And there, everybody was safe. People were out and about. You don't see homeless people everywhere. It felt like an experiment of a successful city. It was clean. You see sort of old school Hungarian things, like a little kind of hole in the wall where you can get some goulash, and then you see beautiful hotels and chain restaurants and all of that stuff. But it really strikes me as a place that is open and liberal in the right sense of the word, meaning that there are different types of people there. But it's within the prism that is the Hungarian culture. And the weather, we were there in the springtime, so the weather was absolutely great, and the Danube is beautiful, and the geography, and even just because it's sort of, even as a city, it's a little bit mountainous, you get multiple layers and levels and lots of stairs, so it's just a really cool place to be.
Can you talk about your experience at CPAC? What was the energy like there? How was it different than ARC London and your trip in February?
Yeah, CPAC Hungary was super interesting to me because there's a deep connection right now between what's going on in America and what's going on in Hungary. If what drove Trump to becoming president was the idea of America for Americans, like build a wall and we either have a country or we don't, well, Hungary's very much dealing with it right there. They are fined 1 million euros a day to keep their borders closed, meaning to just control their own borders and decide who can be in Hungary or not. The EU fines them $1 million a day. They're willing to do it because they get other benefits by being part of the EU, but it's a really bizarre hostage situation. And that really was the backdrop of much of what was discussed at CPAC.
Started by Prime Minister Viktor Orban.
This is like the beginning of Robocop.
We lost the studio. Believe it or not, in America, that would consider a racist idea.
We are not in studio today.
Normalize this idea.
We are at CPAC
It's okay
Hungary,
to be America
here
first.
in Budapest, and
It's okay.
It's very exciting. The morning
Because
just
said
kicked
it
off. I'm
in the
actually in the
theme,
future right now. I'm
right?
6 hours
Fatherland.
in the future, but we are live. All right, I'm here in Budapest at CPAC Hungary. The Age of Patriots is the tagline for the event. Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, just spoke. There are diplomats and public speakers from quite literally all over the world here. I'll be on the main stage in a few minutes. We're doing a live show, live Rubin Report right over here. Here, you can turn the camera. There's a chair there. See, there's a chair and people and all that good stuff. And then we'll be doing a live Rubin Report tonight with about 20 guests, probably the most guests I've ever had on one show, except maybe for election night in America. But it's very exciting. We're in a very small country here. Hungary has, I think, 9.7 million people. But it is in a very critical part of Europe where they are trying to defend their borders, defend their culture, and I think you understand that has a little something to do with what we're trying to do in America, and it doesn't have to do with skin color or religion or anything else. There are cultural values that every nation shares with their own citizens, and if you don't defend that, then you don't have a nation. So that seems to be what this conference is about. That's a bit about what I'm going to talk about when I get up there, with a little bit of smacking around the mainstream media a bit and more, so stay tuned. Prime Minister, it's a pleasure. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Something 2 or 3% died of Germans. So let's count our blessings and let's be grateful. Looking like 10, 15 years ago, I remember that is who we are and what we are doing because we have a very special language. Only 12 million people on Earth is speaking this kind of language.
Global order is under strain.
With the South African
The
government
elites
now just
who built
signing
and profited from disbelief,
denying that they are doing
confusion,
it. So they go to America and they
anger
deny doing it,
at
and then they go to South Africa and they say we will not stop doing it.
How are you?
Great, nice to see you. Good to see you with our
Our
allies across
children
Europe,
scattered
across the
across
world,
the
including the
continent
United
in the
States,
largest migration
to
crisis
restore
in the history.
what made Britain great.
And yet,
that's why I'm here to
we
talk
rise.
about that.
when I gave my talk, what I was trying to focus on is how do you deal, every country has to deal with that themselves, but how do you deal with that with a media that's also lying about you the entire time? So if you're the good guy in the story and you're the one saying, hey, I just want to defend my family, these are the values we believe in, this is our country, we just don't want everyone taking all that away from us, and the media is calling you the bad guy the entire time, how do you deal with that? So that's a little bit more of my expertise. And I sat down with Balázs Orbán, who's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's chief political director, although both Orbáns not related apparently. And we talked about how do you deal with not only the physical problem of the border and dealing with the EU and making sure, again, that Hungary is just for Hungarian people. Not that they happen to be a Christian nation, but not that they happen to be all Christians. There's 100,000 Jews that live in Hungary. It's by far the safest place in Europe for Jews. And there's other minorities there as well, obviously. But how do you deal with like a physical sort of attack on your country and then the media attack on your country? And I think we came up with some decent ideas to push back against that. Freedom. I have not had any goulash or anything else yet today. No goulash.
We got to do that.
Where's the goulash? Well, I see a lot of carrots. I see a lot of crudité, but no goulash.
I'm starting to think it's not a real thing.
Is goulash just a rumor?
I think it's just a rumor.
You want to tell people what you're doing right now?
I'm about to go on the main stage here at CPAC Hungary. I'll be giving a solo talk, and then I'll be joined by Viktor Orbán's political director, Balázs Orbán, no relation. A lot of Orbáns here in this Hungary, apparently. And we'll be talking about freedom and borders and sovereignty and all that good stuff. Stay tuned. Where's my speech? You give me the speech? How do I do this? I just get up there and say whatever I want? Well, you know what? I'll go. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you. It is wonderful to be here at CPAC Hungary. I must say that I watched the opening video intro of some of the mainstream media coverage of this event. And first, a very warm welcome to all of you right-wing extremists. It's great to be here with you. Very exciting. Particularly in Europe, there is an assault on free speech right now that probably is the single biggest issue on the globe more than anything else. We've got immigration issues, there are economic issues, there are security issues, but the assault on free speech, the attacks that we are seeing across Europe, where if you tweet a meme or you say something against the government or you make an unsavory joke that you're going to have police show up at your door, this notion, I think, attacks the very bedrock of the ideas that we are here to defend today. And I'm particularly honored to be here in Hungary. This is my second time here. And it's interesting, Hungary, which is a country of, I think, 9.7 million people, a fairly small country, that you guys, if America is the epicenter of all of this for the globe, that Hungary has become the epicenter of freedom for Europe. You're doing it right here. You really are doing it right. And one of the things that I think I'll discuss with Balázs Orbán in a few minutes is that when you do things right for a while, it doesn't seem that exciting, right? People stop remembering that things could be a lot worse. And I can tell you, having been involved in the culture wars in America for the past decade plus, that all of the things that we're fighting, you know, this crazed sense of wokeism, whether it's related to the transgender nonsense, whether it's related to race, or whether it's related to borders, or any of these things, these ideas are hacking away every single day. They are hacking away at our basic freedoms.
What are some of the main differences that you saw when it comes to the politics of Hungary versus a country like London?
You know, most of Europe just seems to be falling on the sword. They, I think, have resigned themselves to a future that's not really their future. I don't think it's what the average person in London wants. I don't think it's what the average person in Paris wants, or any of the big cities in any of the Western European nations. But they've elected leaders over the course of really 2 decades at this point that have said, we are going to open up our borders. We're going to allow all of these people in from other places. It doesn't mean that these people are all bad. It doesn't mean that one religion is specifically bad or anything else. But when you allow all sorts of people in, and they have all sorts of competing ideas, and you had a set of values as a nation. There was a set of values that was a British set of values. Doesn't mean it was perfect, but it was British. Same thing for France, same thing for any of these countries. And then you let people in who don't really care about your values, and then you don't create the conditions for these people to succeed. So then they end up getting on the government dole, they want government benefits, and then you're actually then costing the person who's legally in your country, who's one of your citizens, more, because you're saying, oh, these people are going to come in and we're going to give them stuff, and we're not going to assimilate properly. I mean, the United States has assimilated people from all over the world better than any country in the history of the world. That's the grand experiment of the United States that largely has worked. Europe, it was not exactly that way. They were like, oh, you can move here, and Pakistanis will live here, and native British people will live here, and Africans are going to live here. And so their experiment was more tenuous, even though it's older. And now they've created a situation where it seemingly is untenable.
For the first time, Muslims marking the holy month of Ramadan have been invited to break fast at a royal residence.
Windsor Castle, once the symbol of British royalty and heritage, now echoes with Ramadan prayer.
And then when you push people to a point where then eventually they kind of do become racist in some sense. Because if you push people enough and say, your country's not yours, your values are not yours, your food and your culture and your music and your history, all of it was bad and negative, and your founding was bad, and all of those things that we see here, you do that to people enough, they will start fighting back, maybe in ways that will either be genuinely racist in some sense, if that's the word, or perceived as racist, or using racism as a mechanism to push back against. So I would say Hungary right now, out of all of the countries in all of Europe, meaning Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, etc., Hungary to me is the strongest. I think some of the other Eastern and Central European nations are doing just fine. Hungary really is sort of, I would say, it's the main bulwark against the craziness, and Western Europe is largely screwed up. And I don't sense, after spending a lot of time in London and wandering around those streets, like, you try to find me a native Brit who is bullish on his country, and you got to find somebody who's like 6 pints in and willing to tell you that, because otherwise it's hard to find.
Does it shock you that Hungary is the example for other European countries?
Yeah, that's a good question, because does it shock me that Hungary is the example? In some ways it is shocking, because you would think that, the UK and the British Empire, whatever would be left of it, that they would be leading countries out of this. Or we think of France, for all the problems with France, like they're this great nation. You don't really think of Hungary as this great nation. You don't really think of it much at all. Like Hungary, you think of Hungarian goulash. That's pretty much it, right? You could probably think of one European basketball player or something like that. But again, it's a country that has an unbelievable history because of its geography. So having survived Nazism and having survived communism, what's obvious to me is that they learned the lessons. That's the thing. These people are serious about protecting their nation this time because their ancestors paid the price for it. So while it's shocking, I guess, in some sense, that you get a leader like Viktor Orban who's willing to stand up to the Europeans, he's the Trump of his country, in essence. He is just saying no to everybody. The European Union, they come in there, they want more money, they want open borders, and he just says no to everybody. So he's their Trump. So I guess in some sense it's not shocking. They were hit both ways, communists and Nazis. They survived, they got their country back, and now they're fighting for it. And in some sense, being a relatively small country with a relatively small, largely homogenous population, that's their strength, right? Like that ends up becoming the strength because they have a certain cohesion around a history. And that's what I think most other Western nations are struggling with. There's no cohesion around a history if you have a certain set of people that aren't proud of their history, and then another set of people who come in and are there to basically crap all over the history. Hungary doesn't have that fraying within its sort of logos, and I think that's part of the key.
All right, so it's the middle of day one here at CPAC. I spoke earlier, been doing interviews all day long. I'm going to meet at the Prime Minister's, I guess we call it palace, residence, with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. If you listen to the media, he's a very scary man who says all sorts of scary things. I've met him once before. He seems like a nice guy. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, how you doing? I'm good. He was like that. It's like, he seems like a nice guy to me. And we're going to talk about Hungary. We're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about the connection between America and much more. They're actually not letting my cameraman in the room, but they will be videotaping it. And we'll grab some clips of that. And then we will have some Hungarian goulash. Yair Netanyahu, we're going to do a proper sit down in the free state of Florida, which I call the other promised land. You come from the real promised land, Florida, the other promised land. So I only have one question for you right now, which is something that you brought up in your talk a few minutes ago, which is that even if you don't care about the Jews, I care about the Jews, I'm Jewish. You care about Israel, your last name is Netanyahu. Even if you don't care about the Jews and you don't care about Israel per se, there is a reason you should care about what is happening in Israel. And I thought maybe you could just explain that for a few minutes, and then we'll do a much longer version when we're back in that other free state.
The pro-Palestinian riots and protests, it's not really about Palestinians and it's not really about Israel. It's the same people that did the George Floyd riots. It is the same people that are Antifa people. The Palestinian flag is the new hammer and sickle red communist flag. This is just an updated version. This is about the desire to destroy Western civilization. You have the Red-Green Alliance. The red is the Marxist. The green is the Islamist. They have different reasons, but they have common goal: the destruction of Western civilization, the destruction of Judeo-Christian civilization. Israel is just the first target because it's the smallest. But but America is the real target. The Iranian regime, the Islamist regime in Iran. How do they call us in Israel? They call us the small Satan, but they call America the big Satan. And we are just the...
And you said that Europe is the middle Satan.
Europe is the middle Satan, but we're just the appetizer. You guys are the main course. And Iran is building intercontinental missiles. They don't need it to reach Israel. Their current missiles already cover Israel. They're building it to be able to threaten America, to be able to threaten the East Coast of the United States. What we saw in the last 2 years in American elite universities, that, by the way, the biggest funder of American elite universities is Qatar. It's a country of the Muslim Brotherhood, which been outlawed throughout the Middle East, outlawed in Saudi Arabia, outlawed in the United Arab Emirates, outlawed in Egypt. It is the same ideology of ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and they are the biggest sponsor of this organization, and they're hosting them on their soil, just like Afghanistan hosted Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda after 9/11. They are hosting the leaders of Hamas after October 7. And they are brainwashing through influencers and through the academia, American youth to hate America, to hate Christianity, to hate the history and heritage of America instead of being proud of it. What we saw in the colleges, they've been waving Palestinian flags while burning American flags. Yeah. They would take the American flag out of the pole, you remember that? And then they would raise the Palestinian flag. So this is not about Israel. They are vandalizing the monuments of Lincoln and George Washington. This is nothing about Israel. This is about the desire to destroy America and destroy the world.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Thank you.
I do remember you. That's right. That's right. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Welcome back to Budapest.
Maria
from
Nice
Hi.
to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you. How are you? How does it happen?
6 times a week in the gym, my friend. 6 times a week. Sometimes 7. Sometimes Motzei Shabbos. What is it? That's it.
What's going on? Oh, I missed a text from you. Is that the bond? That's the bond. How much are you saying?
That's
Clearwater only interests me.
I want to guide you to the room in the place.
Good. Are we going up here?
Yeah, we're going to go outside.
Oh.
Yeah, Erdogan.
Okay, all right, let me take a look. Okay, either way, we may try to leave at 5:45 just to get there a few minutes early.
What channel?
Ava, how are you? Hi, it's nice to see you. How's everything?
Nice to see you. Sorry, everything was back and I didn't want to hit you. Nice to see you.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
It's a new style of friendly informal conversation.
This Prime Minister, I promise the questions won't be that bad. So it's a great pleasure to meet you, sir. Michael Knowles.
Welcome back.
Responsibility in Kiev, but we had to go back there.
But you know,
What's the perception, because
I mean, this is nuts. Now, I'm just about to do a show with 10 guests with no rundown, no run-through, no papers have been handed to me. I don't even know all the guests. The wind it's getting very windy. Don't worry, now you're going to see. Is Dave Rubin a professional? We're going to find out.
Okay, here.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Just do your monologue, stand-up comedy, 10 minutes, and then next guest invite Cecilia Hazai onto stage.
Okay. All right.
If
so
it doesn't say clip, there's no clip. You got
all of my
time?
broadcasting skills right now in one
I
shot.
know, I know. This is the real test.
Yeah, okay.
Ready? Yeah.
Thank you for our special guest.
well, it's Dave.
Thank you. I must say, first off, I don't think I've ever started a show and been the last one at the show. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for being patient. I do have a good reason. I was in a small group chat with the Prime Minister next door just now, and that guy's got an awful lot of security. There was no way they were letting me out of the room. So I appreciate your patience, and it's good to be here with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just spent an hour with your Prime Minister, who was so unbelievably impressive to stay with, really. He deserves the applause, even though he got me here a little late. He was so impressive, not only talking about what the issues are. I mean, everyone knows what the issues are, right? The issues are immigration and migration, and there's economic issues, and there's obviously Russia, Ukraine, and all of those things. But listening to him just for this last hour talk about the philosophic roots of why he thinks the way he thinks, and some of the reasons that he's doing the pro-family policies here in Hungary, and just things that are just not really talked about that much at the national level. So it was a pleasure to be there. And just generally speaking, when I come here, I find the people, you're all in the fight. You know, I travel all over the world, and there's a lot of countries right now that the people, they're kind of nervous about the direction their countries are going. And I just spent a couple weeks in the UK, and you walk around London and you talk to these people, and there's a real feeling that they're giving their country away, or perhaps that they've actually given it away already, and that there isn't much hope. And it's like that, obviously, in other parts, particularly I would say in Western Europe. You know, there's certainly a feeling of that in France. There's a feeling of that in Germany, but it doesn't feel like that here. It feels like you guys have kind of stemmed the tide that was coming.
This is for anyone who's never been to Hungary. What is a message that you'd like to get across after having been there for a couple of days?
I think the most important thing that I saw about Hungary firsthand was that what you hear about Hungary versus the reality of Hungary are very, very different. So if you just listen to the media, they're a right wing, they're this far right nation, and Orban is a modern Nazi, and Hitler, and far right, all of that nonsense that the media lies about and everything else. You know, we did a live Rubin Report there where it was literally probably the biggest show I've ever done. We had a couple hundred people in the audience, and I had about, 10 or a dozen guests that we rotated in and out. And they were from all over walks of life. Like, there were political thinkers there were artists, there were actors, there were musicians. It was as culturally rich as any show that you could have done in the United States. So the idea that it's this nation, and just because they're Hungarian and they're fighting for Hungary, that somehow means they're all xenophobes or racists or any of the other silly things is just kind of very thin. I think most people watching this can understand that. I would say the other part is that it really is nice to see, having been someone that has spent a lot of time traversing the United States of America, where I go to plenty of our cities that are depressed and that are not safe. Or, I lived in a place like New York City under Giuliani where it was safe, and now I go back and I see how it's just been so severely degraded. And that's not just in America. I go to London and I see every time I've gone back for the last 15 years, it's worse each time. Or you go to France and you see that it's worse each time, and the homelessness and the migrant situation, all that. Where then you go to Hungary and you're like, oh, it doesn't have to be like this. In some sense, it reminds me of Florida, where I walk around Florida and you're like, oh, it's normal and sane and decent and good. And that's what it could be, but you have to vote in the right people. That's probably not even the first thing. The first thing is you got to kind of fix yourself, right? At Jordan Peterson, clean your room, kind of figure out what it is that you're doing in your life. Start your family, your values, your community, all of those things. And then hopefully that will extrapolate up to the political sphere. And that's what then gets you a leader like Orban, who's trying to fix his country. It's what we did in America. It wasn't, in some sense, Trump was the signal. There was enough of us, especially Trump 47, that basically were like, oh, this is our last chance to fix the nation. We better get on board. And that's what the wide tent thing is that Trump is doing with MAGA right now. So I would say, go to Hungary and see what's going on there. And guess what? You're going to be able to exercise your free speech. You're going to be able to go to a bar at 3 a.m. and have a good time, and you will eat plenty of goulash. This is the Danubin Report.
That's a good one.
You get it? You get it?
Oh, that's good. That's good.